very warm welcome back to A Cup of Cozy. Emma and I are super excited for today's episode because we've got a very, very special guest with us who we know you're going to love.
We're back with a guest, and today's guest is hopefully somebody that you can take a little bit of insight into the whole postpartum journey and our minds, basically. A bit of all the self-love that we don't always give ourselves.
Definitely not. So let's introduce the amazing Becky Raven to the
Hello,
show.
thank you for having me.
Welcome.
I'm super excited to be here.
Well, let's have a little think back and talk a bit about what you do
Yeah,
from the start. 'Cause you've been on quite a journey yourself, as we've discussed
yeah,
already.
been quite a journey. I actually came into the industry as I had a wellness business and I was a personal trainer. So that's how it started.
Lovely.
Then I fell in love with coaching women. A lot of the women that were coming to me wanted to look good, but they didn't love themselves. And that kind of turned into this whole journey of coaching women on their mindset. I became obsessed with the mind, how it works, both from like a psychology perspective and an energetic, like more spiritual perspective. And I went on a massive journey myself. So that's where the mindset coaching came in. A lot of my work was about, or is still about, but was about confidence,
Yeah.
self-love, self-acceptance, healing, anything that you've kind of been through, manifestation. And then I became a mum quite quickly and have had like 2 children quite quickly as well. So the work's kind of shifted into that space now, just naturally, sharing, I guess, the journey that I've gone on, but also tools that are really realistic and practical. So adding, I would say, keep the manifestation, I keep the energy work, I keep the mindset work, but I've added the layer of like nervous system regulation to it now.
Incredible. Well, I know
Yeah.
I follow Roxy Nafusi.
Yeah.
I love her.
Mm.
And she said once on a podcast her podcast thing, that it's really quite sad, but we're the most confident when we're born, and then life just happens.
Just
And
chips
somewhere
away.
along the way, your confidence is just lower and lower and lower and lower. Do you think that's just exacerbated when you have a baby? Do you
Yeah.
think, as adults anyway, confidence can be an issue for a lot of
Yeah,
people?
I think confidence is something you work on. Like I think the reason why we're, you look at your kids and they're just born with this incredible confidence, courage, and fit. Like nothing's taught them otherwise. Yeah,
They're
and
just
that's
themselves,
yeah,
aren't they?
they're just
Unapologetic
themselves. They've not had
themselves.
the experiences that that knocked my confidence.
Yeah.
Or that was a bit
Or
scary.
somebody said something and you've never
Exactly.
forgotten it.
It's usually someone said something,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes down to over years as you grow up, teachers, friends, boyfriends, ex-boyfriends, you kind of get your confidence gets knocked along the way. And I think definitely motherhood has a huge part to play in that
Yeah.
because you're sleep deprived, you're exhausted, you've got anxiety, your hormones are wild, and all of those things will contribute to the confidence that you necessarily
Well,
show
it's
up
funny
with.
actually because you've written a book, which is also incredible, but
Thank you.
quite exciting in a way, is that you wrote it before
Yeah.
you had kids.
Yeah.
What made you want to write a book at that time?
Since the moment I got into this work, I always wanted to write a book. I love to write. It came really naturally to me. I do hear a lot of people say like, I mean, it's a really hard process to write a book, but I literally thrived in it. I loved it. So I always wanted to write a book. I didn't necessarily think it was going to be about manifesting. It was always more to do with like raising your energy, raising your vibration, raising your self-worth, confidence, and kind of particularly me, I went on a really long journey of like self-hate to self-love and acceptance. It was a really
And was this
long
before
journey.
kids?
Yeah, this was like
Wow.
fresh out of uni, a really bad breakup, but even at uni, within that relationship, I was very insecure. I was confident on the outside, but really hated myself internally. When that relationship came to an end, I was 21, like just fresh out of uni, moved to London. And it's funny because I had huge confidence in like the work that I did, but confidence in myself
Yeah.
was really
It was just
different, like
shot. Yeah.
self-love. So I went on a really long journey healing through that. I went through body confidence issues. I was restricting, over exercising, you name it, all the things we do
Yeah.
to try and make ourselves feel loved. So that was a big part of the journey. And then it was actually my publishers, they approached me about writing a book and they wanted it to be about manifesting. And actually, kind of as I thought about it, I was like, I guess the principles and the stuff I teach in life does take you on the journey to manifest. And how I teach manifesting is quite different, and it's less about the things, it's about manifesting the experiences, the feelings in life. So yeah, the book came out I went to Dubai to write my book. Classic, went to Dubai. It was like during COVID when everyone hated everyone
Yeah.
because they'd gone to Dubai. I came back in the April, met my partner in the August, and was pregnant by the
Oh my
January.
goodness. And
And
that was using the techniques you wrote about.
yeah, well, what was really interesting is I felt like I'd manifested, my work was in a really great place. I'd built this incredible relationship with myself. I'd been single for a really long time. Like I'd manifested and turned my life around in so many ways. And like the big missing piece of the puzzle was I didn't have a partner and I didn't have the family,
Family.
which was I would have said to anyone, I'd get rid of all of this if I could have that.
Have it all.
So then what I kind of did, and that was a lot what was going in my head when I was writing the book. I was like, how am I teaching people about manifestation when like I haven't manifested the one thing that I really want in life? But then I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity to share that. Let me dig deep on these principles that I'm sharing, get really honest with myself. There's certain things I say in the book, like you get really clear on what you want, for example, like am I settling for versions that are or aren't that? So I kind of set myself up with the challenge, and when the book came out in the August, I was like, it was like when I handed the book in, which was like in April, I was like, I'm going to put into practice everything that I really do truly teach about finding a partner and manifesting the family unit. And it was like a few subtle last things that happened, and then I met him in the August, like 2 weeks after the book came out.
Because manifestation, it is like this buzzword, isn't it? At the
Yeah.
well, I say at the moment, it has been, I think,
Yeah,
for the last couple of
Yeah,
years, hasn't it?
has.
And it's still this like this buzz, but then there's also skeptics that are literally
Yeah.
like, this is not for me. This is a little bit woo woo. And do you find that with your book, do you feel like it can apply to anyone, no matter how open, or do you have to be really open minded, basically?
I think you have to really believe that it's possible. I think now, like the whole, Roxy's been a big part of that. Like
Yeah.
we know now that manifestation does work. For me, a lot of the manifestation chat, it's quite surface level, right? And I think there's layers beneath that. And for me, that was almost where everything changed. It's like you can manifest things, but we're all looking to feel a certain way from those things. When you think about anything you've wanted to manifest in life, you don't really want the thing. You want the feeling that that thing is potentially going to bring you. So I think manifestation is a really broad umbrella topic, but actually what sits beneath all of that is self-worth, self-confidence, knowing yourself, like getting to know yourself, working on
Yeah.
yourself, and nervous system regulation actually also sits a
Yeah.
big
Well, yeah,
part.
so we can talk a lot about that because I feel like new mums and just mums in
Yeah,
general suffer with the nervous system stress levels more
yeah,
than anything else and more than any other time in their
yeah,
life, most probably.
Yes, I think the way that a new mum would do manifestation is different to someone who isn't a mum.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Because their day to day is just so
Yeah,
different. I remember I felt like I related quite well to Grace Beverley when she spoke about manifestation on her podcast. And no, she did. I think she did 2 episodes about it. She was the skeptic at the beginning, and
yeah,
she did not. But I think when she realised that it's actually, you don't just write something on a piece of paper,
no,
put it under your pillow one day and think it's not come true. It's actually a project about yourself, isn't
yeah,
it? And the deep work that you do for yourself. And
yeah.
that's what you manifest the things you want that way.
And there's a psychology piece, there's a scientific piece. This is that she likes to touch on a little bit
Hmm.
more. Like you've got the woo woo, and I like to come from both. You've got the like
Yeah.
energetic,
Mhm.
things just happen.
Yeah.
Amazing things happen. Like I don't think you can deny that there's a higher power out there
Yeah.
that we can all lean into. So I come from that side of things where I talk about being high vibe, low vibe, but actually I feed it all into the subconscious blueprint, the mindset, the belief systems that we have, the way that we talk, the way that we think, what we're worthy and deserving of having in life. All of those things play a really big part in manifestation.
Well, I
So
think what you said before about the surface level part of it, that I think that's so true because I feel like a lot of the, if we have like goals and we want to achieve this, there are a lot of people who go, yeah, I want to do this and I've got this and this is going to be my way to do it. But it's all for show. They actually don't believe it
yeah,
in themselves. So it's obviously more about feelings and emotions than it is actually about. And I appreciate you've got to put action into, whatever
yeah,
you want to do. But if you're not feeling it,
yeah.
how are you going to do it?
The beliefs, the emotions, the feelings
Yeah.
are like the fundamental
Yeah.
part of all of it. And I think when it comes to motherhood, you can absolutely manifest stuff in motherhood. Like like it might be a house, like there's things you can manifest. But I think that early motherhood, like, those first few years, trying to manifest these big things, if you're feeling low already, is probably not the best way. Like, it's not the best time to be focusing on it. That's not
Yeah.
to say it's not
Yeah.
the right time, but I think maybe taking the word manifestation off the pedestal and actually being like, and it will depend on where that mother is sitting
Yeah.
in her motherhood journey, how she's feeling day to day.
Mhm.
You know, there are lots of mums who absolutely nail it, thrive,
Yeah.
and, you know, manifest businesses and success all at the same time.
Yeah.
But you tend to find beneath the surface, there's things going
There's
on
something
that they're not feeling
So
quite,
how
yeah,
was your state in motherhood? New, you know, first time. I know
yeah,
you've got 2 other kids, third one on the way.
yeah, third one on the way. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
How was it for you that first time? Because
Uh,
everyone's got the first time
so many
mum
layers.
story.
So many layers. I think for me, motherhood was on this pedestal. It was all I ever wanted, was to have children, literally. So, and I think because I was single for so long and it was this big conversation around like, when's it happening for me? When's it happening for me? I think I put motherhood on a pedestal to make me, I was already happy. I wasn't looking for it to like fill a hole or make me
Yeah.
happy. I'd kind of done that work, but I expected it to make me feel
It was
Me
the
too.
cherry on the
I
cake.
didn't.
yeah, I've
That was
expected it to
the
make me
I did.
feel
that
complete in a way. And I think motherhood doesn't really work like that.
No.
Like, I found out I was pregnant, I'd only been with my partner for 4 months. So there was that whole like, oh, like, we didn't go, oh my God, we're having a baby. And I know that's really hard for people who, you know, there are people in the world who are trying to have children, and it's a really
Absolutely.
challenging like conversation and a topic. But for us, it wasn't like that. But that was really challenging for me. It was like, oh, I haven't been with this guy that long. I feel really safe and happy and content and like, but like,
Yeah, but
wow.
you will wonder, is this
Yeah.
the right thing to do? Like,
Yeah.
you're still in the early stages of a
Super
relationship.
early. Also, I was in the best place physically, emotionally, spiritually, my like that I'd ever been in. I was, and I think that plays a massive part in the fact I manifested what I manifested at that time. But
Mm.
I was thriving. I
Mhm.
felt really happy, really content. I was living in a gorgeous flat in London. Like, my career was in a really good place. My book had just come out. You know, it
Yeah.
was all really great. And then I met this guy and it was really great. And then we moved, we bought all of a sudden we weren't even living with each other. We had to
Yeah,
buy a
that's a
property or find a
360.
property. And we did a lot. So we bought a house, we moved into his mum's house while we were renovating our house. He was renovating our house. So it was very stressful.
Yeah.
So prenatally, I really struggled with my first. I felt really instantly like my identity changed. My career was going to struggle. I didn't know what I wanted and I was at a position in my career as well where I was kind of outgrowing things anyway. So whilst it was great, everything kind of happened at one time. So prenatally really struggled. And then I think I spiraled and beat myself up because I was like, hang on a minute. I teach principles of self-love,
Mm.
mastering your mindset. I had trained to become an RTT therapist, which is basically like a blend of hypnotherapy, CBT, NLP, psychotherapy. It took me like a year and a half to study that. So I was beating myself up. Like, I was expecting to have a rock solid mental health throughout pregnancy and postpartum, and it was completely the opposite. So it was very layered for me because I
Yeah.
really struggled and then I beat myself up because I was
Yeah.
struggling.
Mhm.
Do you find as well, and it's interesting, Emma, because you obviously being self-employed probably went through this as well, is that when you think about when you've not got a baby and you think about motherhood, because you don't know the reality of it when you have, even when you're pregnant, you don't know
Yeah.
anything. I think, because I remember thinking, oh, it's going to be like this and it's going to be like this. And there's a million things that affect your normal day
Yeah.
that change everything, like work, like you just said, your relationship, all
Mhm.
those things. I didn't think about any of that when I was
No.
pregnant. I just thought about the roses and the,
Yeah.
ooh,
See,
we're going to have a
I was the other
baby.
way, and I thought of
Really?
that, which
Yeah.
is
You were
why
like,
I wasn't
teach
that
about it.
maternal. And again, like when you said before, like it happened really quickly, and
Mm.
you felt like, oh, there's people that try and try, and it's a bit.
You
I
feel
was the
guilt
same
around that.
because I wasn't that maternal because I expected the worst case scenario,
Did you?
and that. Don't mean that to sound awful, but I remember thinking like I'm never going to be driving in my car on my own. I'm always going to have somebody in it. I'm very independent, and like my own time. It scared me having that wiped away, and then I
Yeah.
also thought about like, yeah, I'm self-employed. I don't get maternity pay,
Yeah.
I don't get sick pay, I don't get,
Yeah.
and
Very
yeah, and
realistic
like,
as well when you run a
yeah,
business. That was hard.
I
Like,
just had my own life, and I was scared for that to
yeah.
change. So I was the opposite. I didn't think of those
Yeah.
physicians.
So I think everyone has like really
Yeah.
unique journeys. I was super excited to become a mum, but I I think I was so concerned about how my career would
Mm.
struggle.
Yeah, I was
And
similar.
it felt like instantly my career was not as important as it was. But actually, internally, it didn't feel as important as it did.
Yeah.
I love to work. I love working. I will never not. It's just who I am. But I think I had this added pressure of I had to work. I had no choice.
Yeah.
Postnatally, I was back at work within like 6 weeks after my first.
Wow.
We fell pregnant with our second when he was 6 months old.
Wow.
And then when she was
Wow.
born, it was probably the most challenging piece for me was we moved into our new house. She was born. He out of nowhere got a really bad severe case of eczema, like
Oh gosh.
horrific. We were hospitalized with it.
Oh, same.
It was
I
so
had
it
that
was
with my little boy.
awful. And you know what it's like,
Yeah.
anxiety inducing. There's so many different answers as to like how you can help,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
to
it's
cure
it's
it,
the
to not
whole
cure it. It
it's a
was
whole
so
world, isn't
stressful.
it?
But I was 2 months postpartum with her. She had colic, reflux, bottle refusal, tongue tie. He then caught measles in the hospital when he was in hospital for that. So we were in and out of hospital, and I was just on the floor. Like my mental health was, there were days where I was like, I don't even want to be here. Like, and I
Oh
got
my
really,
God.
really low. And I do think, I wholeheartedly believe that that's where I found my spark again, because I was like, if I didn't have this mindset, if I didn't have the stuff that I'd done prior to the kids or know what I know, I don't know that I would be here. Like, generally, I think it was that mindset that I had that saved me.
Yeah.
There was so many nights I was like crying on the kitchen floor because she was a really bad sleeper as well
Yeah.
because of the reflux.
Just
I
what
was
you need.
so sleep deprived that I was like, I just cannot do this anymore. And I think that's when I then had this drive of like, Christ, if I'm struggling as someone who's trained in what I've trained in, I know how our mind works. I know how we can spiral. Like, if I am struggling,
Think of all the
I
others.
can't even
Yeah.
comprehend how many other mums,
Yeah.
and they have nothing. There was
Yeah.
nothing out there to really support us that
No.
was realistic.
Well, it says here
That's it.
10 to 15% of UK
Yeah.
mums experience postnatal depression. And we've had a little conversation before we started recording about how common it is compared to what you think. You don't,
Yeah.
when you go into pregnancy, you don't think you don't think anything bad, do you? You don't think that's not going to happen to me. That won't happen to me, especially if you've done work on yourself
Yeah.
before and you think, I'm in my best place. Like, I'm perfect for this. What is it that takes a mum, a new mum, particularly first time mum, into that low depressive state? Is it hormonal or is it just everything?
I think it's the perfect storm. Like, it's
Yeah.
the perfect cocktail of a recipe. And I think that's what we don't realize is, I know the stats for postnatal depression are high, but what's starting to get more conversation, but maybe hasn't previously, is it's like postnatal burnout and nervous system dysregulation. Like 70% of women have signs of burnout, because ultimately, if you think of why you might get into that state, like depression's slightly different. It's a little bit more around the mindset piece, like really feeling like you can't leave the house. Like that's how they tend to like diagnose that more. You know, you can't leave the house, you've got severe anxiety. It can be hereditary as well, or like repetitive. So when I mentioned to my midwife I was struggling with my second pregnancy postnatally, this time around they've been like, we really want to watch your head, like your mind, because it tends to reappear. And I'm very much like, I know why though, because they were so sick.
Yeah.
But I think that the scarier statistic is there's probably a very fine line between what classes as like postnatal depression and postnatal burnout, and and ultimately you're getting no sleep. Let's even start right before that. You're pregnant. That's a huge toll on your body, on your hormones,
massive
on your
changes.
mind,
Especially
on
if
your
you've never done
nervous
it before.
system.
What's your
Yeah.
first?
And you're anxious and you're reading up. Is this normal? Is that normal? What the hell's happening? Your body changes. So you're handling all of that. Then you give birth, whatever your labor looks like, C-section, natural, or vaginal,
Yeah.
induction, whatever that looks like. It's a huge toll and strain on your body and your mind, the anxiety before, the recovery afterwards. And then you're thrown into early postpartum where you're not getting any sleep. You're probably not looking after yourself that well. You're probably not feeding yourself as well as you would. Your hormones are up and down. The mental load completely increases. Not only is it like the mental load of motherhood, you know, like
Maternal mental
yeah,
load, yeah.
it's also that anxiety. Is my baby sleeping okay?
Yeah.
Why aren't they sleeping? I mean,
And then relationship stresses, because it's all sudden
Exactly.
your dynamics changed.
yeah. So it's it's not crazy to believe that the majority of mums are completely burnt out, completely dysregulated.
Yeah.
For some that might present as anxiety, for some that might present as low mood, for some that might move all the way into the depression piece. And so that, when you think about it, it's like, wow, well, this is years of it. This is, and that is
Well, I
that is
just trying to
dysregulation,
say is
isn't
the
it?
timeline of it,
Yeah,
because I remember after about 6 months when I'd had Reva, I felt a lot better. I
yeah,
just started to feel more positive,
hmm,
sunshiny. I just didn't before. It all
yeah.
felt very like, oh my
Is
God.
that common? It's mainly the first few months.
Yeah.
Is that the
It depends.
highest?
Again, I think it depends if you're breastfeeding, if you're not
Mm.
breastfeeding. I think first baby, second baby, like I think those first few months, what your partner's like, what
Yeah.
Yeah,
work
there's
is
so
like.
much to feed
Like the
into
big
it.
one for me was like financially,
Mhm.
you don't, self-employed, you don't get any maternity pay,
No.
like you can get a penny maternity pay. And a lot of my work revolves around me being
Being you.
there
Yeah,
and
yeah,
being
being you.
present. Prior to the kids, I had memberships and courses, so they were kind of selling themselves, but I literally stopped all of that stuff
Yeah.
to rebrand it all just before I had my kids, so I didn't get round to doing it. So that was a massive pressure for me, was my partner doesn't earn enough to provide for us. I don't,
Mm.
that's fine, but I had to get
But
back to work, so then I
that's
had
on
that
you, yeah.
constant stress of,
Yeah.
well, I need to be working. So I think it really depends on your
Yeah, and that was the
situation.
comparison that I carried
Yeah,
through both my maternity leaves when I used to go to baby groups and I would see mums that were on a 1 year
yeah,
well-paid maternity
Mm.
leave. And I remember my husband, when my kids would nap, I'd get my laptop out and my
and have to
husband would
work.
be like,
Yeah,
imagine if you had a normal job and
Yeah.
a maternity leave where you could just enjoy this
yeah.
year.
Hmm.
And I didn't with Eva. But I wouldn't have said that. When I look back at mine, I didn't have postnatal depression, but I do remember thinking I had it with my second.
Mm.
And I wasn't sure, like there wasn't anything that stood out for me. Like you can't sometimes diagnose yourself,
No,
but I was the opposite where some mums do feel they have depression and they cannot leave the house. I was the opposite in terms of I couldn't stay in the house. I had to get out every day because there was something about being in the house.
Mm.
And my husband worked from home, so it wasn't like I was on my own.
mm,
Something about being in the house with a baby it didn't work for me. I had to be out. It's like almost when I was outside, my problems went away. Do
interesting.
you see that with
I
is that a
I think that's quite a good thing that you're that's awareness,
Yeah,
right? I think it's
totally.
something that's really important in motherhood is to be really aware of what works for you.
yeah.
Obviously, it made you feel good getting out of the house, and that's
Yeah.
ultimately like a really good thing.
It
I
was like
didn't
being at home highlighted problems.
highlight it, well, because you're probably surrounded by. It's hard. I find it
Stress.
hard being at home with the kids now,
I
though.
do.
Oh,
I have to get
yeah,
them out
I'm
of the
still the same
house.
now, 5
Yeah.
years on.
So I think again, it's so individual, but I think it's about finding, you spoke there about like you weren't sure if it was or it
Yeah.
wasn't. I think arguably like I'm not sure if mine would have been classed as postnatal depression or it wouldn't have been, or prenatal depression. I've kind of just made that assumption myself
Mhm.
given the work that I do, but
Mm.
that's where the fine line gets dangerous, right? Because we
Yeah.
would just think it's the norm.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is it
I
is the
didn't
norm.
know.
Like if mums are listening to this and they're feeling anxious, they need to get out of the house, or they're struggling, or they're not in control of their mindset, or they feel very low, like that is normal.
Yeah.
Like
As in, like, really common.
yeah, it's very common, let's call it. It's very
Yeah.
common for postnatally. I think that it's about finding the support
Yeah.
networks and the support tools to have conversations. I wanted to put off going to the GP. That was for me. I was like, I just know
Yeah.
that they'll just straight up be like, well, here's some meds.
Yeah.
And I think because of my line of work previously, and I know there are people who are on the meds and it has really helped them. But like for me, I was just like, I feel like there's a way that I
You
can
know you can tackle it another way.
tackle this, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy. Um, so I think that's the main thing in motherhood, is like getting to know what works for you, which is
Yeah.
really hard when you're
Yeah.
in the
I
trenches.
remember messaging a group of mum friends that I had their seconds at the same time I had my seconds, and I must have been really low because I remember I just woke up one morning and one of them had sent me a link to a community centre near me that was holding like groups for mums that felt like they had depression,
Mm,
and it was on that day. I just remember waking up, seeing it. I read the message. I didn't even tell my husband, but just in my head I was like, I'm going to go there this morning.
Yeah.
And I went, and when I got in there, the ladies made me fill out this really big form that was a tick box of how I was feeling.
yeah,
And it was kind of seeing if, do you need a counsellor through this community centre? And it was free, it was a free service for
yeah,
mums. And they thought that I did. And then it was the next week that then they would have one available. But then something just changed that week. Like I think I just had a good week that then I realised I didn't need it the following week.
hmm,
So then I thought, okay, so maybe I don't have postnatal depression. And maybe it was just low mood. It was always very dependent on how the baby was. Like it was
yeah,
never a
yeah.
consistent feeling for me. It was always
Me too.
the
Whether
highs and
you've
lows of the
slept, whether you've
baby.
not slept, whether you've had a
Yeah.
row with your
Sleep for
partner, or you
me was the
haven't,
key. I think it is
is
for
the
most
sleep.
mums.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you've had a decent sleep,
yeah,
the
Yeah.
day is you
completely
can
different.
handle everything that goes
Everything.
wrong.
Yeah.
But if
My
you
my
sleep
two are
deprived,
terrible sleepers. Like my 2.5-year-old still never slept through the night. She
no.
wakes up multiple times a night. I was up
Yeah, Riva
I
does.
probably had 3 hours sleep broken last night, and sleep deprivation does crazy things to your mind as well. So, and that's where it's like, I think understanding and the education piece is really important, but
Yeah.
I also think it's like giving yourself grace. Like every day does look different, and I
Mhm.
know on the days when I've had good sleep, today's the day to put as much as I can into whatever work I need to do or looking after myself better because I've got it in me today. And
Mm.
I've started to learn now, three in, like the days where I'm really struggling and I know I've not had any sleep, they are the days where I have to really dig deep
Yeah.
and go, this is not the day. Or like maybe today is the day to just sit on the sofa and neglect everything,
Yeah.
but try and do one thing for myself today to make me feel good. Just feel good. Like I think
Yeah.
that's my like mantra,
Mm.
and it was my mantra in my book, Pre-Babies. We have this like ideology that we need to feel joyful, purposeful, peaceful, manifest, these words are big. And ultimately, whatever you want to manifest in life, and if you're on a self-love or confidence journey,
Mm.
you're actually just wanting to feel good, right? You want to feel
Yeah.
happy, you want to feel content. And I think we've taken feeling good and decided that we all need to feel up
So
here.
like the base level has risen,
The
hasn't
base
it? The
level has
base
risen
has
of like
risen.
happiness.
Yeah. So if you're not
Yeah.
absolutely through the
Uh-huh.
roof buzzing,
Yeah.
it's a rubbish
Which is
day.
really unrealistic
Yeah.
for even someone
And
without
yeah.
children to
Yeah.
feel every single day. And we've lost that baseline. So that's where my compass is always, how can I feel good today? What
Yeah.
one thing can I do that might make me feel a little bit better? I'm not trying to strive for like these big
Extreme.
Yeah.
manifestation words or like any of, I'm just like, well, can I call a friend? Might that make me feel good?
Yeah.
Can I sit on the sofa and just watch some TV? I think that might make me
Yeah.
feel good. But actually, am I going to sit on the sofa and doom scroll? That's not going to make me feel
No.
good.
Well, I was just about to say the influence of social media, as much as it's incredible, it's horrific for new
Yeah.
mums. The
Yeah.
pictures and videos of joy that you constantly see, because nobody really posts the bad days. They
Yeah.
don't, or even if they do, you don't
You kind of
fully,
roll your eyes to it.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
fully know
Yeah.
what the bad days are. That creates this complete false sense of what a day is supposed to look like. And when I remember hyperfixating on other mums' videos of things that they'd done that day, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that with
Yeah.
her, or
God. Yeah. When I
I've
see
never
like
done that
mum
with her,
vloggers.
or and then you just feel
Comparison
an
shop.
immediate
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah.
That's got to have
But we're
an
looking for that failure. So I think what we don't realize is when you become, this is outside of motherhood, like we operate from 90% of our subconscious mind, right? So the beliefs that we have that
yeah,
are ingrained in us, and our subconscious mind is formed growing up and it's the highly susceptible 0 and 7, like between the ages of 0 and 7. So your children under the age of 7 are learning everything that they know about self-care, self-love, what that looks like, what love looks like, everything. Their subconscious mind is forming, right? So we tend to build a belief system pre-babies of like, so that was me, for example. I really believed anything was possible. I really believed like you
me
can make as
too.
much money as you want to make if you put your mind to it or work towards it. You can have as much success as you want. When you become a mum, what tends to happen is you have this whole new set of beliefs around what you're worthy and deserving of having and feeling based on how you were mothered or weren't mothered. So
Right.
you
Mhm.
almost get this whole new blueprint of what motherhood should look like. And I think we can all agree motherhood now is very different to when
So
our
different.
mothers were
Well, like my
mothers.
mum
Yeah.
said, everything was a
Yeah.
lot more basic
Yeah.
than what it is now. So, like, the stuff that winds us all up is if we can't go for a coffee without the kids screaming, or you can't. My mum was like,
Yeah.
we never did
We didn't
that.
even do that.
We just stayed
Yeah.
at home, so
And there
you could
wasn't quick
deal with it.
fixes. There wasn't
Yeah,
quick iPad in
absolutely.
front of the kid. There
Yeah,
wasn't these quick fixes back then. It was the
yeah,
baby is unhappy and you
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
And like for me, the big thing, my mum worked 100 hours a week. She was a single parent.
Wow.
There was never enough money. There was always enough money, but never more than just enough. We were always like stressed about money. And I love her to pieces, but her emotional regulation was just not there. She would be really calm and really content, and then she'd snap and lose it. I'd never know what mood she was in. She had like a couple of mental breakdowns as well, like which now I kind of understand were probably just complete
Yeah,
burnout.
burnout. Yeah, stress.
Whereas back then you were crazy.
Yeah,
And so guess who learns motherhood to look like that? Me.
yeah,
Which is why I've had to like dig deep and really learn like emotional regulation, because
Yeah.
this isn't conscious. This is really subconscious stuff. Like that's just who I understand, what I understand motherhood to look like.
mm,
So we're also dealing with
So interesting,
that
isn't it?
complexity of it, that that like, yeah, you're either mothering like
Yeah.
your parents mothered, or you're so determined to be the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I think mums that'll be listening, it'll probably get everybody thinking about their early memories of motherhood and what
Mhm.
it looked like. So, like when you say about that with your guilt, so my mum didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mum, and my dad worked. My mum was there for every. So I'm a twin, so my mum had two. She
Yeah.
was there for everything for me and my sister. There was nothing there was no nursery. There was
Yeah.
no,
No.
and like after school clubs. I don't think they even had them then.
No.
But she was there for everything. And I, as a working mum, sometimes feel that guilt that my mum had her
Mm.
life was dedicated to being a mum for me and my sister, and I'm juggling everything, and it's my
Mm.
my motherhood is different, and I feel that guilt because mine isn't the same
Isn't the
as.
same.
So isn't
Yeah.
it funny how everyone will have different guilt
Different.
and
Yeah.
thoughts?
And you mentioned earlier about like how hot, like feeling two things.
Yeah.
My friend literally messaged me on the way up here, and she's like, "This is the best thing I've ever done, but Christ, it's the hardest thing I've ever done." And I was like, "Welcome to motherhood.
Yeah.
You will never feel in one space. Like, I
Yeah.
love my children more than life. I wouldn't have it anyway. They're the best thing that ever happened to me, but this is by far the hardest
Yeah.
thing that I've ever dealt with." And you're constantly
Well,
dealing
it's
with
like that
those
going
two
away out to
feelings.
work, like you said, you feel that guilt, and you really
Mhm.
desperately want to get back. But then when you get back, you're thinking about work, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh, I can't wait to do this and achieve
yeah.
this. It's brilliant when they're there. And then when they're not there, you just feel absolutely horrific. How did you feel having to go back to work so quick? Because I had horrific that first day of going away. I was just like a mess. I was like, I can't cope.
I think for me, I I never really had that like straight line of, oh, she's going back to work tomorrow. I kind of was working. A lot of my work is on social media, so I kind of was just working
In the
naturally anyway. I didn't
background,
have to like drop
yeah.
him off somewhere to like work. And luckily at the time we were living with Matt's mum, so I had help if I desperately needed to do things. But a lot of my work at the time was on podcasts or on live, and I couldn't. That all had to stop because I
Mm.
was living in a house with the dog. It wasn't my house. I didn't have the space. But I really want. A lot of my self-worth, I think, came from work. So I think first time around was very different to going back second time
Yeah.
around. But I really like it. So I really looked forward to going back to work,
Yeah.
and I didn't find it a bit challenging. But I think that's because I didn't have a year off. Like I didn't have a year off. So it's so different to someone who does. And I think when we were talking about the freelance life before, yes, the women who go back to their corporate companies, they have that slight freedom around like they're getting paid,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but equally, a lot of them that I know, and a lot of my friends, they have that anxiety around going back. A
Yeah.
lot of them, some of them, not a lot of them, but some of them are in jobs they don't particularly love.
Yeah.
So
So
they have
it's
that
yeah.
fear, and then also the money stops after like 6 months, and then they're like struggling.
Yeah.
So but both ways come with their challenges and their difficulties as well.
And I think a lot
Yeah.
of people change as well in
Yeah,
maternity
yeah,
leave. And then I think that's probably when companies start to see mums going back to work and like not quite being in it whereas before, I just think it can change a lot of them and
yeah.
they all of a sudden want to do a bit of a career change.
You're never the same again, are
No,
you?
because you're not. Because
It's
you're
no.
saying. So if there's mums listening to this who are currently on maternity leave and they are feeling that, that fear about going
Yeah.
back, and they are literally like, am I just having like a midlife crisis? Do I really want to go back into this? What do you have mums that say that to you, and what tools would you advise for them to, to get not like get over this fear of going back to work, but like
Get through it.
get
Get
through it?
through it.
And is this really like a calling to do something else, or
Yeah.
is it just very typical for mums to
I think
have
I think
this?
with anything postpartum, like identity, not really knowing where you stand, I think you have to take the pressure off a little bit. I like the big thing I struggled with was um trying to be who I was before and trying to
Yes,
get
It's
back
that's
to
the
that.
same with me.
I
Yeah.
feel like I've finally now, like nearly 3 kids in, surrendered to the fact that
You
I
just give
won't
in.
probably ever be her, and this is me now, so I've got to embrace it. So I would say, like, again, it's taking the pressure off. It's giving yourself more grace. If like there's one thing I could say to mums, like give yourself more grace and compassion. Like try and if you've got to go back, there's no choice. Like see it as a stepping stone into something that might then where you can work on something else. If you know that
Yeah.
that's definitely something you don't want to do right now, then start to explore
Yeah.
what is it that maybe might light me up now that I am where I am. But I think it's really important to be mindful of like the season that we're in very early postpartum, that's not to say that you'll feel the same way in a
No.
year or 2
True.
years'
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So take things a little bit with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, I think it can
Um,
feel like that, can't it? When some people have really lovely maternity leaves where they
Yeah.
are generally doing everything really
Yeah.
nice and spending so much quality time. But when they do go back to work, actually then like you say, like
The struggle.
everything changes and maybe people will start to, oh, I like this side of it again. And times just change,
Yeah.
and then so it's not always to
I think
think
it's
you need a career
it's so
change.
individual, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it's hard to give that advice unless we know exactly kind of what woman or who she is. And I know a little bit more about her background to be able to give that advice. But
Yeah, of
I
course.
know for me, work never looked the same, and I'm self-employed. Like the same motivations don't drive me anymore. Success doesn't look the same to me anymore as it used to,
Yeah.
and the idea of success doesn't look what it like to me what it used to. Before I was on that bandwagon of like, get the book, like
Yeah.
be really well known, do all,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, if I can help people, like it was always about helping
Yeah.
people for sure, but I'm more around like, well, I want to be able to pick up my children from school.
I'm the same. I'm like, I want my job to fit into school hours, and
Yeah.
that for me is success, being
Yeah.
able to work but be
And be
flexible.
Well, it turns the other way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It becomes where that's
Yeah.
the priority,
Yeah.
like being there at pickup and
Yeah.
making sure you're there at home or to do bedtime or whatever. That's the priority.
And I don't have the time to get worried about the things I used to get
No.
worried about with work that maybe were holding me back anyway. Like,
Yeah.
so
I was just about to say, when you were in with your first postpartum, were there any tools that you, because of the training that you'd done, used and didn't work? Was there anything that wasn't working and you were
all
like,
of them.
this is something that I would have normally done and it would have sorted me
All of
right
them.
out?
A lot of my work prior was about positive thinking and was meditation based and was around raising your vibration, like trying to feel good. So that still resonated. I think your mindset is always around your thoughts and your beliefs. So it was more the reality of doing it the way that I was teaching it. And I also think for me, and I don't know, there might be a lot of mums that really resonate with this and there might be some that don't. I went on to full self-sabotage, self-neglect mode when the moment I found out I was becoming a mum. I went from working out 4 or 5 days a week to not really working out in my pregnancy whatsoever. My meditation practice went out of the window. This was even prenatally. So at that point, like I didn't have the baby.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was my environment. I didn't have my own space. I'd moved from this gorgeous flat where I was living on my own to like living in my partner's mum's house, which was amazing. I was very lucky and we got on really well, but wasn't mine.
No.
So I think it was more about the setup of those rituals. Like postnatally, meditation is really challenging because sitting in silence,
Oh yeah, but I can't do
it's
it.
not possible because you're
Well,
not
when
used
you-
to it. We're like so used to noise.
Meditate, lady.
The big thing for me was I used to teach like get up in the morning
Yeah.
and before you do anything, meditate, move, like do some journaling. And I like there must have been mums following me like, shut up.
I cannot do that.
Yeah, like this is just not realistic.
That's what
like,
I think when I
this is-
see it.
like,
Let's shut
honest,
up.
I'm
People
like,
who haven't got kids go,
today.
you'll find the time. And it's
No.
like,
Yeah.
See, I struggle with that narrative a bit with the motherhood space. Like, I think that discipline can be dolled up as you're just controlled and you're not like it can be like nervous system abuse in cases, right? As in like that sounds really heavy, but like if you've had a really rough night's sleep and you've been up 7 times with the baby, it is not right. Like you shouldn't be getting up
You shouldn't
and like
join the 5 a.m. club if you've had a night of hell.
Sleep is the most important thing. So it was more after my second that I then started to really go, okay, how can I take what I have learned from my mindset studying, from the energy work, and then I fell in love with breathwork, and then I trained to become a breathwork coach, which was what then led me down the path to understand our nervous system more, which then tied up, it kind of pulled everything I'd ever learned back together, because the nervous system is really intrinsically linked with manifestation, because you have to feel safe having the thing that you want to have, right? When we're dysregulated, essentially our body, we're in survival mode. We don't feel safe.
Again, because of sleep most of the time?
It was sleep, but also I think because I'd been years of neglecting myself as well, from a personal perspective, I was just on the floor. My nervous system was all, I was burnt out, sleep deprived, I was horrible to myself, wasn't looking after myself. And I'd almost use this excuse as I don't have the time and it's not an excuse, it's a very valid reason, but I kind of let it become an excuse to completely neglect myself. So then that's when I dug deep and was like, okay, what is realistic for me as a mum with 2 children that don't sleep and runs her own business? What does this look like now? Because I'm, I don't ever have this whole get up before the kids thing. If I tiptoe out of bed, they're both in bed with me.
Yeah.
They like find their way in the night somehow,
Yeah,
both
I
of them.
can't do that.
Mine
And I
too.
still
If
see it
I sneak
everywhere
out,
online.
yeah,
I'm like, skip,
no.
can't do that. No.
If I like so much as move a toe, my son's like, where you
Alert.
going? And he needs to sleep. So I end up just staying in bed till he gets up. So I can't get up before them to do anything that I want to do. So now it's very much, okay, what can I do? What is realistic for me? And I've kind of built a bit of a blueprint that I think marries the mindset piece, the nervous system regulation piece. And that is kind of my mission now, is like,
Amazing.
how can we make this more realistic for mums?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talk about getting mums more help,
Yeah.
like with their mindset, counselling, therapy. Again, is it realistic for us to go sit and have an hour's conversation with someone all the time, consistently, at a set date every week? Like,
Yeah.
no. So it's more about how can we teach more mums what they can do
Yeah.
that's realistic, that's easy, that will still take like a bit of determination and some like talking to yourself, like, oh no, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this for myself, but over time will get easier. That is going to help us.
And something as well that isn't like set to a routine, because
Yeah.
pre-baby, I would be the same as you. I would get up and I would have like my rituals in the morning of what I'd do. I'd shower at this time and then I'd have my breakfast and
Yeah.
all this. I'd maybe do a workout in the morning, so I was done for the day. And when that's taken away from you, you're like, when am I going to get?
Yeah.
I've got to try and find time to do it, which every day looks very different, doesn't it? Every day is
Yeah.
different.
And for the burnt out mum that is listening, who is probably like me, that scrolls past anyone on Instagram that is
Yeah.
saying, get up before the kids,
Yeah.
and they can't do it. And they're listening to this and thinking, this sounds great, but like, what is it
Was
then?
it?
What
Yeah.
can I do? What can they do?
Yeah. I want to backtrack because I think we haven't done it, is just
Yeah.
say firstly, like, what are the signs of feeling burnt out? And like,
Yes,
you
So
need
yeah,
that
please.
work.
actually, yeah,
Just in
no,
case someone, we said like they don't really know.
Yeah.
So I'll like take that question in too. But I think the first thing is like understanding that you do need some support. Like if you're, and these are, everyone's gonna be like, well, this is just me all the time. Snappy, you can't
Yeah.
regulate your emotions. Like my partner would be like, why are you crying? Or why are you getting so, and I can't actually physically regulate my emotions. When we're in fight or flight, we don't have the capacity to be able to do that. We are literally purely in survival mode. So feeling down, feeling irritable, feeling exhausted or wired. Some people get really wired, but they're tired. Anxious, negative thoughts, like they're all signs of burnout, like which most of us will just completely identify as that's just our everyday life. So I think looking at it now, you've got to get really honest with yourself around, okay, well, what does work for me? What works in my day? So
everyone's life will look
everyone
different,
is,
won't it?
and
So
everyone's motherhood is so
it's
different.
individual.
Yeah. Some people get sleep, some people don't get sleep. Some have got poorly kids, some haven't. Some have got more help around the house, some don't. All of those things I think play a part. So there's a couple of things that I say is, one, like breathwork changed my life, because unlike meditation, breathwork is it's not work. You don't have to sit there. You don't have to be sitting down. You don't need 20 minutes.
So you can do it anywhere.
You can do it anywhere. You can do it while you put it in the wash now. I like to do it in the car, like on my way back from dropping the kids off. 4 minutes is my drop-off drive, and I completely feel...
You maximise the 4 minutes.
Yeah, but I have to dig deep to that.
Yeah.
Obviously normally I'd want to like voice note my friends, and
Yeah.
I would choose the ones that wasn't serving me. But now I have to dig deep and be like, no, this is when you listen to a good podcast, or this is when you do your breath work. So breath work almost needs a new word for mums. It's like breathing techniques that can support you. So the reason why I found it so incredibly interesting was because it's more scientific, right? Meditation, I love meditation. If you can get into that trance, which I used to be able to get into, great. But as a mum, it's not doable. So with breath work, if you just simply even shift your breath from, like the one I say to people, we have tons on the app and they're all like on the go ones on my app. But what I try to say to people all the time is, if you think of basically extending your exhale, making your exhale for as long as you can, it triggers a signal to your brain that you're safe, and then activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest kind of calming sensation.
That the majority of us don't even breathe properly.
Yeah, most of
we're not even taking in enough.
We just breathe through my nose all the
We
time.
either hold our breath,
Or it's a
or we're up
it.
in our
I think
chest.
that's right.
Yeah. So I will quickly just sometimes, if I'm feeling really dysregulated, like I will literally just do like inhale for 4 through the nose. We want to be inhaling through the nose, and then exhale. The easiest one is like purse your lips as though you're about to blow through a straw. So like you just go like that.
And
6
okay.
counts.
Yeah.
If you can do longer. But if you notice, like even the way I'm talking
Has just
has
changed.
just
So
changed.
that's a good one to do in the car then,
Yeah.
to
In the
remember.
car, if I do it a lot, like my Matt's always like, "You don't huff and puff." I'm not huffing and puffing. I'm
Breathing.
regulating.
I'm
And he now he goes,
my
"I'm
nervous
regulating."
system.
But that is what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
like taking a nice deep inhale and then just sighing it out. The physiological sigh is another one. So you like inhale in, and then you inhale in again a little bit at the top,
An
and then you
extra
go
one.
just sigh it out. This isn't like woo woo. This is actually science.
Mm.
Like it's actually triggering a signal to your brain.
Makes you feel
I'm
different.
safe.
And
If you do that
makes
for
the
4
change.
minutes, I did it the other day. I tested it in the car and I filmed myself, and I find morning drop off really
Do you?
overstimulating. I haven't been diagnosed ADHD, so and I think again that's a lot of mums get diagnosed ADHD.
Yeah,
I think a
get
lot of it
that.
is
Yeah,
is
totally get
burnout
that.
though.
Yeah.
But I find noise. I've always been very
Noise
hypersensitive to
sensitive.
noise, to like 101 things going on at once. So
Yeah.
I find that time from 6 o'clock till 8:30 when they get dropped off incredibly overstimulating, depending particularly if I've had a bad night's sleep.
Oh, it's like you've done a shift of work already.
100%.
Yeah.
And then and that's the bit I almost like resented
Mm.
so the most, because that was, I used to like savor my
Oh,
mornings.
I did.
Yeah.
And I don't now.
Gorgeous.
I get home at 8:45 and I'm frazzled.
That's
and
a
Yeah.
high stress period. Yeah, no, same.
So I tested it the other day, like filmed myself just literally doing that, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 6, or like as long as I could go. And like it's a 4-minute drive home. And
Wow.
you could visibly see
Yeah.
that I went
Yeah.
from being like to like
Yeah.
It's a simple trick that
simple
could just
tricks.
literally trigger
Yeah.
something.
So breathwork's one
So,
of them. The other one is like really just asking yourself the question, like, okay, what can I do in this moment to make me feel good? Like, it's a really simple question, but that, like, can you go for a walk? Can you take yourself out? Can you call a friend? Can you listen to some music that you might like? I think we've forgotten to ask ourselves, and especially as mums,
Yeah.
we've taken our needs of feeling good
Well, because
completely
you're
out of the
constantly
conversation.
thinking of the next thing that you
Yeah.
need to make sure is sorted for
Exactly.
your child. So if it's not food, if it's not who's going to pick them up there, am I going to be
Yeah.
that appointment, this appointment, we've got that club to do. And it's like you actually don't have the tabs.
No,
I feel like I just don't have the
don't
tabs
have-
for
yeah.
myself. I just like, that is the last
we
thing.
put ourselves last,
Last,
because
yeah.
we're taught that that's what being a good mum is.
Yeah.
But actually, happy mum, happy baby, happy mum. Our mantra at Mama Breathe is like that you are the core. Your whole household feeds off how
It
you
does.
Your
feel.
vibe.
Yeah, so
And I think
true.
where the mums that come to me that say that they really struggle to prioritize their needs, the easiest way I get them to do it is because they're so keen, like they're worrying about everyone else's
Yeah.
needs, is if I told you that your child was learning everything they know about self-love, what they're worthy of having, what they're worthy and deserving of feeling in life by watching what you do, they're learning what self-care looks like, what self-neglect looks like, because they're watching you.
Absolutely.
If that was a motivation for some, then let that be the motivation. It's like, actually, your children are learning everything between the ages of 0 and 7.
Wow.
And not only that, but they're co-regulating with you. So their nervous systems are wired to ours
So they're
until they're
like,
7.
yeah,
Yeah.
with
So
you.
need to
So
remember
if you're
this.
calm, and it's really easy, like if you're calm, they're calm. Like, there's nothing more annoying when you're stressed and someone's like,
Calm down.
calm
Yeah.
down because you're going to stress the baby. But it couldn't be
Yeah.
more true. They are completely regulating and like off you. So I have noticed since being pregnant, my children are, particularly in the first trimester, they were wild. Their emotions were all over the place.
You're joking.
They knew, but they were, my hormones were
Yeah.
wild. They were completely feeding off me. And I've been humbled, even in the work that I do, where I've been trying to get my little one to sleep. And like, I do not stay calm. I think that needs to just be said in this podcast. I don't stay calm all the
I
time.
don't know.
I'm still very much in the
always worries
trenches.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the trenches. I am really having a challenging time. My little one doesn't sleep. She's up scratching. And I've been like carrying her, like, just go to sleep.
It's so annoying.
And then I've stopped and I've remembered what I do and what I teach.
Yeah.
And I've changed my breath. And like, it happened like a month ago. And I just literally did that 4-second, 4 in,
Yeah,
6 out.
breathing.
She was asleep in 2 minutes on my shoulder.
Oh my God.
And I like burst into tears because I was like, then you carry the guilt. Oh, what's me? I'm the one making them stress.
I knew how to do this and I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when they're playing up and then you've tried to be calm and ask them to do something. Oh, just calm down. countless times, and then I just go.
Yeah.
And then, it's the guilt after it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, I don't know what else I could have done in that situation because nothing
No.
else was working.
And
But
it's
then I do
hard.
blame
You don't want
myself.
to add any more pressure to yourself. We have enough pressure as mums, and this is like, that's where I'm like trying to be really conscious with this work. It's like, I don't want to make mums feel like they have to do another thing, but it's just in like trying to find a way,
Yeah.
like where, you know, a mum came up to me at an event I did, and she was like, how can I teach my son to like do breath work? And I think her son was like 4 or 5, or like, how can I help him remain calm and like teach him how to regulate himself? I was like, by watching you do it. It's you.
Yeah, that's interesting
It's
because
you.
when my little girl gets really worked up, we do sometimes say to her, just breathe.
Yeah.
Because she's getting so
She's
worked
not
up. She's
even
like, and we're
breathing.
like,
Yeah.
breathe, but we're not
She
going
won't,
around
no,
breathing.
and she
we,
won't
we
listen.
don't
She
do
can't
it.
hear that. When kids
Yeah.
are in that state,
Yeah.
their brain switches off. That's why
Yeah.
like me and my partner have this conversation all the time, because I'm like, this is what I do for work, and he's like, no, they need some firmness. Well, I'm like, when they're dysregulated
Yeah.
like this and they're stressed or they're having a tantrum, they're not hearing a word you're saying.
No.
So that's why I'm not pandering to him by getting down and giving him a cuddle. I'm regulating his nervous system,
And
so
I
I
do,
can then
I do
tell
that.
him.
I think I've been too soft.
Yeah,
but
my partner tells me I'm too soft all
Yeah.
the time.
But the
I'm
thing
like,
is, it's
I'm
pointless
not.
shouting at them.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? Like, you're just
They're
winding
That
yourself
part of their
up.
brain is completely
Yeah.
switched off. They're not hearing it.
Yeah.
So that's where like it starts with us. Like instead of telling him to calm down and breathe, I calm down and breathe. And it's not
Brilliant.
easy to do. I don't do it all the time. Like I again, like my baseline is emotional dysregulation. That's what I learned from my mum. I can get really snappy and I can like really struggle with
Yeah.
staying calm. But
Because it can happen before you remember to breathe, if that
Yeah,
makes
of
sense.
course.
So if you can, for the most of the time, have it in your
Yeah.
mind, like next time this happens, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
become
When I
a
get
routine.
really like worked up and know that I'm gonna like absolutely like scream at my kids, I've started just walking out the room, but I do it dramatically, and then they go, and then I can hear the silence. And
Yeah.
I try not to slam the door, but sometimes
Yeah.
I do, which is bad, but I have done
Yeah.
in the past. And then I just take a minute, have a
Yeah.
breath. But then when I come in, they're like, because
Yeah.
they've
Okay.
started knowing that I do it when I'm about
you know what
to
you're
go.
teaching
I'd
them
rather
that
just
that's
walk out.
amazing,
Yeah.
because you're
But then
teaching them that you're aware.
Yeah, but then I'm worried that I'm teaching them walk out the room in a dramatic
If that's their way
fashion.
that they have to regulate when
But
they're
it stopped me
older.
from shouting. So
Well,
even though
exactly.
I'm not proud that I do that, like I do dramatically go, right, I'm going into another room and walk.
I
Bum, bum,
I
bum,
would
bum.
argue you should be proud that you
But
do that.
okay,
You
oh, so
found
yeah,
you
but
found a
that's better.
regulation thing that works for you.
Yeah,
All right, it
better
might
than
be like a little
screaming.
bit dramatic, but we all like a little bit
Oh,
dramatic.
don't
It's
we
like
just?
I
my
can't not
partner
because
has
I'm
to do
so
that.
wound
He
up.
has to walk out of the room. Even if we're arguing, he has to leave the room and like take a minute.
That's his way.
That's what you're teaching your children, that if they do feel dysregulated, that is an option for them. Like
Take
my
yourself
son
away.
started hitting, and I was like, okay, if you're angry, it's okay to be angry. Like, whereas my partner will be like, you need to calm down. I'm like, but you get angry
Yeah.
in front of him. Where do you think he learns it
Yeah.
from? So I say to him, if you're angry, let's stamp our feet. Let all your anger out and stamping your feet. You can hit a chair if you like. Like, you're allowed to let
Oh yeah.
those emotions
They
are
can-
still
yeah, they can
important.
still
We're not
see
meant
it.
to feel happy all the time, and neither are they. But
Wow.
yeah, it's learning the tools that
Mm.
work for you.
Yeah, I think I've just learned that it's better for me to do that. And even though it can still seem a bit like, oh, mummy's in a mood because she stormed out, it's better than me screaming at them
Yeah.
and then having that regret. I'd rather go into another room, shut the door. Sometimes I like go say something under my breath, or I'll get a pillow
Yeah.
and be like, oh my God, I'm so angry. But I'm thinking they're
a
not,
good idea,
they're not
though.
watching
No.
that. But they do know that I'm not okay because I've walked out the room.
Yeah.
It's becoming this thing.
But
now
it's
that I'm
great
like,
for them to know you're not okay. We
Yeah.
can't be happy all the time. They
And-
can't.
yeah.
They can't grow up thinking that
Yeah.
everyone has to be happy and okay.
Yeah,
That's
and then
more
sometimes when I
toxic
come
than-
back in,
yeah.
my husband will say, "What do we say to mummy?" And they'll go, "Sorry, mummy." I'm like, that wouldn't have happened if I'd not walked out the room. But if
Yeah.
I shouted at them, then they're not going to say sorry after that because it's just we're all
Yeah.
climbing like this. Then, okay, that's made me feel better because
Yeah.
I
Good.
thought, am I creating this dramatic exit thing when I'm walking out the room?
You'll have kids that just like, bye, I'm walking out
Well,
the
I
room.
love it when you get
Yeah.
when somebody like Becky goes, "You're doing the right thing.
You
You're
can't
doing the
do
right
that.
thing."
Like, when
Come
you're
to
in
me
those
now
heightened
for
moments of
parenting
stress,
advice.
that's not when I do breath
Yeah.
work. Like I do it like once I've dropped them off. I do it once if I'm doing the washing. And like there's so many other things that you can do. Like there's exercises that you can do where you're just literally even just like tapping your shoulders like this, like somatic exercises. They signal to your brain to like it's a bilateral basically stimulation to your brain to calm down. So there are really easy things that you can do that regulate your nervous system, but also just the mindset piece of I think asking yourself like, how can I feel good?
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like amazing and happy and
But just uplift.
What
So what
can
would
I
you
do?
say to anyone, because we are coming to a close now, What would you say to anyone watching, obviously, who follow you, and we'll find out all your deets so that everyone can follow you anyway, who really is struggling? Would you say to just go and have a look at some of your videos and just try and take on these techniques where you can?
Yeah, I think depending on the level of your struggling, like
Yeah.
for me, what I'm trying to do with my social media, and like we've got the Mama Breathe app, but I'm in the process of launching like a membership that works for mums, like that works with them, as in like is realistic for them to do, no logging into like portals and stuff. But I think we all need a bit of accountability and hand holding and being told, do this today if you're feeling this way. But I think the main thing is like, even just making a promise to yourself, that's something that really worked for me. Instead of these harsh, big goals, can you make a promise to yourself, if you're struggling off the back of today, that you're going to give yourself some daily things that are like promises.
Yeah.
Promises feels a little bit less like force, a little bit less like you've got to do this, and a little bit more like you love yourself enough to do this. So can you promise yourself to like do one thing for yourself every day? Sounds stupid, but like I would sometimes stay in my pajamas. There are days that go by, my
Lazy day.
partner's gone for a run and had a shower, and I'm still in my bloody pajamas.
Yeah.
But it was my fault, because I never would kind of put my foot down and be like, I'm actually going to go and have a shower, take the kids out. So can you do something for yourself today? What's one thing that you can say to yourself nicely today? I have phrases like affirmations. They are really powerful. When, again, you use big words, your brain switches off. If you're saying like, I'm the best mum in the world and I'm going to stay calm forever, you have a system in your brain that's like, nah, like
Immediately no.
And it triggers safety. We're wired for safety. We're wired to like the familiar. So I say words like, I'm worthy of feeling good. Like, I'm committed to feeling good. I deserve to feel good today. Really easy things. Or like, I'm feeling calm, or I'm deserving of feeling calm. I can get on board with that, because I'm not saying I'm already
It's
there.
not something too big to bite-sized.
Yeah. And like the more, like, you have to take responsibility for what you're feeding your mind. We are wired. Our mind only learns by what it sees and what it hears. So, and it doesn't know if it's a joke or it's a lie or it's the truth or not. So like, I used to say to myself, oh, I'm really ugly. Like, oh, I'm so fat or gross, in jest. Like, I never really, that my mind learns that.
But it's
And then we have a filter called the reticular activating filter system, which basically, we process millions and billions of pieces of information every single day. Your mind looks for what it knows, what it's familiar with.
Wow.
So if you're consistently watching crap content or people who don't make you feel good, or
you're going to believe
for me it was doom scrolling, like I would be with the kids playing and I'd be doom scrolling, I've had to really dig deep and go, okay, listen to things that make me feel inspired, read things that make me feel good, watch things that make me feel good, feed your mind, nourish
like
your mind.
control the controllables, really.
And it doesn't have to be out, like I don't set myself up for an hour-long podcast a day. I'm like, if I can do 10 minutes, great. If I can do 5 minutes of breath work, great. If I can move my body in some way today, that's a tick box, instead of I have to do 20 minutes of exercise every single day.
Give yourself a break.
Give those like slightly softer, kinder goals. What will happen is it will start to become your familiar, and you'll start to get good at feeling good again, and you'll start to feel comfortable feeling good, which means those bigger things like manifestation or like that will become easier, because your baseline is I'm worthy of feeling good again. Whereas as mums, I think we think that we're not worthy of feeling good, and that we have to just feel like crap every day.
And then we spiral.
And
then we spiral.
Well, Becky, we could sit and talk to you for hours and hours on end, but we are out of time. But thank you so much for your time today.
welcome.
It's been amazing. I feel like we've put
me.
different people already, aren't we?
I know.
In this conversation.
Touched on hypnotherapy with you, so that was another one.
Another
Part two.
one, I know, part two, yeah.
Thank you so much
you
for
for
sharing
having me.
wisdom. I hope it reaches all the mums out there who are currently in the trenches or in burnout or anxiety or depression. You know, there's so many of us battling different feelings in motherhood, so it's really kind to share some of your tips with everyone.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you so much. And if you are watching, make sure you're liking, subscribe, follow Becky on social media for all of those tips. And any comments that you want to leave, please feel free to do so as well. And we'll see you very soon.
Yep, catch you again. Bye.